arrays, we could have strings as well, right? After all, array is contiguous allocation of memory for same data type. So what if the data type is just, different characters like A, B, or C? All of them together can make an array, right? Similar to that, we have strings which can be represented with double quotes, just as I wrote hello world, right? But using strings really, has many useful methods. That's why we generally do not work so much with character arrays, but we work a lot with strings. So in my Eclipse, again, I'm creating a new file with the class for strings. Now in this, let's create a main method. Now, as I said that there can be character arrays. So let's say I have this character array A, B, C, D. And now, what if I just wanted to print all of them? I would have, had to create a for loop for I equal to 0, I less than ARR. And I actually want to find the length of the array. I don't know how long is this array. So for arrays, we have a very nice property, which is length. So I can simply do I less than ARR dot length, I plus plus. And then within this, I can simply, access ARR. And now I want to access each element within this array. How would I do that? I can simply use this index of I. After all, I is from 0 to array.length, right? So if I want to have 0 to array.length minus 1, I can simply use I, because as soon as it becomes array.length, it would break, right? So I can just do a sysout of this ARRI, and this is how I would print this character array. Now, instead of println, let me just use print to show you how it looks like. Oops. So these are actually thought of as variables just because I did not put my single quotes around them, and single quotes are compulsory for characters, right? So let me just save this again, run this. Now you can see ABCD. But how easy it would have been if I just could create a string called str and I could just use double quotes and write ABCD, and that's it. Let's comment this out and let's try to print str. Let me save this and run this. Now you can see again we have ABCD, but it is much easier to simply define a string instead of using this whole character array. Now, how can we define a string in another fashion? We would have string str. We could also use the new keyword, new string, and then I could simply, assign. So we can say str1, and I can assign str1 to be some other string. So EFGH. Okay, so that's some other string which we have, and let's print str1. When I run this, I see EFGH, which is the value on str1. So this is another way. Or I could actually have created a new string based on my character array ARR itself. So I can create str2, which is going to be new string, and simply pass this character array ARR to this. Let me try to now print str2. Now, as you can see, I have my ABCD output over here, which is actually the output for this character array. So this is a very easy way to convert the character array to a string. Now, why we would want to do that is because we have a lot of good methods available with strings. So for example, just to find out length, we have the length method. Now, if I print that, this is 4 because the length is 4. Also, we can concatenate two strings. So for example, dot, we go to concat and we add another string. Let's say this is str2, which is ABCD, and this is str1, which is EFGH. Now let's run this. Now, as you can see, this is ABCD, EFGH because we have concatenated ABCD with EFGH, and the resulting one is something which is returned to the system.out.println method. So this is how we can concatenate two strings or add one string after the other. Similarly, we have many different methods. You can just press the dot and you can check all these various methods. For example, it has a char at method in which you can simply pass the index. So let's say if I just do char at 0, I'm just going to print that, and then I will have a, because the character at index 0 is a. I can have any other method like compare, or we just saw concatenate, or we can have a method of ends with, which will check if that's this string ends with a particular suffix or not, or we can use an equals method to find that this string equals to another string or not, or we can find index of a particular character. So for example, I just pass b and I want to see what is the index of b. Again, we just forgot this character. We really need single quotes to make sure that this is the character constant. So now str2 has b at the index 1, which is correct, right? So these are so many other methods which really come handy when we want to actually manipulate a lot of text and a lot of data. So you can just go ahead and work with strings and practice yourself. You can try using these different methods, and all the description of each method is actually given in this box, so it really becomes easy to use the Eclipse IDE. You can use the starts with method to check for a particular suffix. Something interesting is the substring method. For example, I just want the string from index 1 to index 2. That's it. This is the string which I want. So if we run this, you realize that you only have the output of B. And why is that so? If you see that it says that hamburger from 4 to 8 will return URGE. And why is that so? 4 is U, 5, 6, 7. So the last one does not get included. That is the reason. If we would have put 3 and if we run this, then we would get BC. So from ABCD, we got BC just by using the substring method. So this is the way you can use all these various methods and try to find all these things. The reason I tell you is because once you know all the various methods and all the various things which you can do with strings, then it will become very easy for you to think that I want to do this thing. How can I do that? Oh yes, there is some method which string has which allows me to do something like this. So let me just go ahead and find from this list what was that method name exactly and use that. So that is one very nice way of learning strings. So now we saw that string is represented by double quotes. It has many useful methods. So strings are actually special types of arrays, which are storing characters. Remember, Java strings are immutable. What is the meaning of immutable? Immutable means that once I assign the string some value, then I cannot change it. What if I want to really change it? Then what happens is that Java actually creates another string with the new value and assigns that new object to your name or your reference which you have created. So for example, I created str equal to abc, but I want to change it to abcd. So what Java will do is it will create a new string object and assign the value abcd to it and return that as str. So the earlier memory is lost and a new memory and a new object is returned. That is how Java strings work. Now, the knowledge of this is really important, because what if you're dealing with a lot of text and you just want to make a small change? If you're using strings, then even that small change can become very expensive, because Java program will take a lot of time to create a new object with all of your text with that small change and assign that to your string name. You don't want that. If you do not want a lot of processing just for some changes, then you can go ahead with other classes. As for string, we saw how we can just create a string, and that would not take a lot of time. We can create a string with an initialized value, or if we want a mutable string, then we can use a string builder class. So instead of using the word string, you can use the word string builder, and that is really going to take the same syntax as earlier, and it is just going to create a new string builder. Now, string builder is a mutable string. You can simply change that in place. It will not really worry about creating a whole new object and copying one by one. So that is something which comes really handy with string builder. Now, if you really want to access the ith element, we saw how we can use char at. For the size of the string, we saw how we could use length, or to concatenate, we saw how we could use the concat method. Even for appending, so in string we would concatenate, but in string builder we can simply append it, and that is not going to take a lot of time. And if you really want to change the string builder string to actual string class string, we can simply use the toString method after the name of the object of string builder, and that's how we will get the actual string back. Now remember that with arrays, we cannot change the size of the array once it is defined. So that problem is again, the same with arrays. So if we just wanted to add something more, or if we wanted to just change the size, grow the array or reduce the array, again, we would have had to create a new array, and then we would have had to copy everything from this original array and then add the things which we wanted to add more, right? So that is a concern with arrays as well. So when you're working with arrays, remember that once you create an array, once you define the size of the array with the new keyword, let's say, you cannot change the size of the array. Similarly, once you define string, then you cannot really mutate it without realizing that there is an additional cost. So you can simply use string builder, or you can use string buffer as well. So string buffer is another class, and we will just, create a new string buffer. And now assign string b equal to xyz. And now let's just print that. Now this is showing some error because it is really expecting that this would have been an object of string. So instead of this, let's just cut from here and paste it over here to initialize it. And then if we really, for example, want to add some value, we can just use an append and then, add some other values like 1, 2, 3, and, really be able to print all of this string B now. So now you can see that this is XYZ 1, 2, 3. We can use string buffer as well. Now you might be thinking that we already understand string builder, right? And string buffer is also the same thing. So what's the difference? So string buffer is generally used when we work on a multi-threaded environment. I told you, right, that we can create multiple threads within a Java program so that, different tasks can happen simultaneously. So string buffer is generally used in that because, your strings will not be changed just because your other threads are working on the same. So we really can have that safety with threads with string buffer. With string builder, we cannot have that. So that's the only difference. But otherwise, for the mutability part, both of them are same. Also, I just wanted to share with you at last that we saw a number of exceptions and errors happening, right? Array index out of bounds, etc. So for example, if I just try to access ARR4 and let me just try to print that. Now, if we try to print that, you can see that it says exception in thread main, and this is array index out of bounds exception. So this exceptions or errors can be handled by Java. There's a way to do that, and that is something which we are going to study in the coming weeks. Now, we studied a lot in the Java programming language, and in fact, with whatever we studied, you will be able to go ahead and understand most of the Java code which is written, and you should be able to understand what is going to be the output of a particular code, and you should be also able to write small Java programs. As part of how we work in the industry, it is really important for you to know that as well. So remember that you can add comments to make sure that another user understands what is going on in your code, but then you make sure that your comments make sense and they are actually true, because otherwise, you can keep adding some or the other comment and it might not even be reflecting the actual code which you have written. Also, remember, if you have written your code again and again, try to avoid duplication, because that is definitely an enemy of a well-designed system. So avoid duplication. Let's have all the code in one place. You can create a method, let's say, with all that code. Simply pass arguments to that method and then let the code work on those arguments and then return to the caller. So that is how you can reduce duplication in your code. Also, remember, don't think of complex ways of doing things. Do the simplest thing that could possibly work to solve your problem. Whenever you're writing any Java code, always follow this principle. Now, to summarize this week's module, we studied about variables, we studied about the various data types and the various operators which we can work on with the different variables. We saw selection statements, iterative statements, and method calling. We also saw recursion within method calling. We also saw how we could pass by value. using primitives or pass by reference, using objects, and how it really makes a difference if the called method really changes the object. Then we saw everything about arrays and strings, how we could use them. So now you can simply use all of this knowledge to complete your assignments. All the best.